and maybe I'll start with introducing Crystal. If you don't know who she is our head of customer success here at Juvonno. So she's been very gracefully accepted to join our panel this morning to help answer some of the questions and offer her suggestions as far as some of the things that we're going to cover off on how to supercharge your Juvonno experience. And if you've attended some of our previous webinars, obviously we have Sanjeev from Clinic Accelerator, who is just an incredible vast wealth of knowledge on all things clinic management oriented. So we'll be looking for some insight into different ways that he might suggest to help adjust your Juvonno experience to make sure that all your staff are really getting the most out of their experience with it. So I guess without further ado, I'll get started here. We actually have a fair amount to cover off this morning as I just went through, and I'm obviously Terry Davison, the president of Juvonno as well, and I'm going to just try to offer some of my suggestions and insight into how I typically recommend for clinics to set up their Juvonno system to really make it as efficient as possible. And as you all already know and have experienced, Juvonno is a really large platform. There's a ton of functionality built into this, and it frankly can be quite overwhelming, particularly for new clinics that are starting up with us. So it's what we're going to go through today is, and I'm going to touch on quite a bit of functionality and how to tweak it at a high level. As I mentioned, we're going to record this so we can send out the recording if you want to revisit it. We're also going to have associated knowledge base articles that will back up or help with any of these topics that we're going to cover off here. But honestly, and Crystal, you can attest to this. One of the biggest things we see on the support side is people reaching out and asking us, hey, you know what, I'm looking at 2 or 3 different reports and the numbers are slightly different between them. What should I be looking at and using? Or where do I find this functionality? Or, geez, I can get to the same thing from 4 different places. And all of these can really, negatively affect your staff, especially when you're bringing on new members to your teams. And so our goal today is I'm going to walk through and show you how you can adjust Juvonno to really set up the most efficient business processes so that both your existing staff are going to have a better experience, and new staff, you'll be able to train them easier. They should enjoy Juvonno more because it'll just be more intuitive for them when they're actually working with the system. So we did put out a bit of a survey, and obviously, 57% of you said that you were somewhat familiar with customizing roles and permissions in Juvonno. And so that's an area that I'm going to really touch on today. And I'm not doing this from a security perspective. I'm going to be touching on this more of streamlining your business processes. So we have what we call user types. And during training sessions and such, you've probably been taught that these are, security roles and you're hiding things that your staff shouldn't see. I also want to take the perspective now today that this is a way that you streamline the system. You can remove things that really aren't relevant to your day-to-day operations and just really give everybody a better Juvonno UI that they can be working with, and they can see the functionality that they actually need, and you're really going to simplify everything. And same as I just mentioned on the reporting side, we obviously I think we're up to like 140 pre-built reports in the system, and I look at like accounts receivable and I think there's 5 or 6 different reports where you can find accounts receivable, but they could be based on different metrics, whether it's clinician-based AR or insurance-based AR or just company-based AR. So I'm going to go through and kind of touch on a few of the things where, there's certain reports that, I recommend here. These are the 5 or 10 reports you should have running all the time. And, if you need to add more, just go into the user type and turn it on. Crystal, am I on track with what I'm saying here? Is this consistent with what you see too?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I'm going to just jump in and so some of the key things we're going to touch on today. I'm going to go through system settings a little bit. We're going to touch on user types. I'm going to show you some of the reports and how I'd set that up, and then finally at the end, Sanjeev is also going to add in just some ways that you can get your staff excited about what they're going to see in these changes and how it's going to really help their day-to-day enjoyment of using the Juvonno system, and frankly, hopefully make it faster and easier for them. So I'm just going to jump into my Juvonno demo system and kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm logged in as a typical administrator right now in the Juvonno platform, and I get the opportunity to help clinics every day with their systems. And this is typically what I see when I log into a clinic system. As an administrator, they're seeing, all the tabs up here. They're seeing, all these different tabs. Down the left-hand side, they're seeing a link to pretty much every function in the system. They go to reports and they're seeing a screen that looks like this with all the scrolling in it, and every report under the sun's turned on for them. Things like the patient profiles. I log into systems all the time, and I'm seeing, they're just scrolling and scrolling on the patient profiles because every single field is turned on. And finally, certain things like, when you're inside an appointment, all the different fields here, and even the new patient, the quick patient creator here, again, it hasn't been modified, and every field is turned on, and as well as our patient flyout. This has, a massive amount of fields available. And normally when I'm logging into our client sites, I'm seeing that they haven't adjusted these. Now, I do realize that this is going to take you a little bit of time, and you're going to have to go in and figure out what's relevant to your clinics and then make these appropriate adjustments. So all of these functions can be set up in our settings, and they can be adjusted very easily. And one of the first things that I always tell our clinics to do is come into the general settings. There's this tab here called modules. And this gives you a list of literally every module that you have accessible to your clinic. Now, when we first ship you the system, we try to turn on and turn off what we feel is going to potentially be relevant to your practice. However, there's a lot of things here that you might look at and go, hey, you know what, we're not using that. Things like accounts payable. Turn it off if you're not using it. Consumables and COVID surveys should definitely be turned off now. But this is an area that I strongly want to promote you to go in, have a look at. And if you're not using things like, say, follow-ups is a fantastic feature in Juvonno, but maybe it's not relevant to your clinic. Turn it off and take it off the screen. And I'm going to show you how that will affect the UI UX for your clients on a day-to-day basis, or for your staff, I should say, not clients. One of the other key areas here too is, again, inside this general area, if you go to patients, and this is one that I see, and I know we've touched on this in previous webinars, probably about a year ago or something, but this is an area that you really should go in and spend a little bit of time on. And there's a couple of key things here. Patient profile. You have the ability to come in and completely customize the patient profiles inside your Juvonno experience. You can hide them. You can set them to mandatory, not mandatory, if it's not relevant. You'll see in here, I've got lots of different fields hidden, like region. Isn't relevant to our clinic, I'm hiding it. Takes it right off the screen. And when I go back into the patient profile, I'm going to show you, it can shorten the screen so that there's almost no scrolling at all. Now, this is a very good area to adjust your patient profile, but there's certain things that get missed. If you scroll down here, patient lookup. This is the patient flyout that's on your dashboard, completely customizable. And I don't mean just hiding different fields. You can drag and drop all of these and format that flyout exactly how it's most efficient for your clinic. Again, figure out what fields need to be there and whether you need to see it on a regular basis. Patient status. Maybe I don't need to see that. I can take that out. Healthcare number. Maybe I don't need to see that when I'm looking at this as well. So I can customize this completely to my clinic and set it up so it's as efficient as possible. Just going to save that. And then the last one that I just want to touch on is, again, in this patient section. Just going to scroll down. And there's a couple of things here in the search columns. Most people didn't even realize you could do this. But on our patient screen here, I'm just going to open up another tab so I can show you that at the same time. All of these columns are customizable as well. So you can come in here and you can hide or enable whatever fields are relevant. So when your staff are coming into this patient section, they're going to see the columns and the data they need instantly, as opposed to having to search for it or opening the patient profile to find it. So you can enable those. And then lastly, down here, quick patient creation. A lot of fields available to you here. Are they relevant? When you get a patient calling in for the first time on the phone to book that initial appointment, do you need all of this information on the phone? Probably not. I typically recommend if you can get their first name, last name, and an email address, you're done. Because you can instantly send out the patient intake or welcome packet, and it walks them through filling out the rest of this information for them. So again, this makes it extremely efficient for your staff when they're taking that initial phone call. And so I typically will tell everybody, turn off as much of this as possible to make it as efficient as you can. So those are some of the key areas that I really strongly recommend you come into. Again, settings, general, patients, look at the patient profile, patient lookup, and down here, the medical profile, or quick patient creation. So all of those sections you can adjust. It's very, very easy. And you can't break this. You hide those and somebody in your clinic comes up and says, oh, geez, I can't find this piece of data. No problem. Just come back in here and just enable it. It's not like the data disappears. You're just streamlining and making it more efficient for these different pieces of functionality for you. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out now, and I've set up administrative profile that I would say is configured the way somebody needs to see it on a day-to-day basis. And I'm hoping that you're instantly seeing some significant changes on the left-hand side. Administrator doesn't need access to settings on a daily basis. Take it out of there. On, things like the accounting section. All of the non-relevant functions like inventory control that might not be necessary for your clinic are gone from here. It cleans up this screen. Reporting. I've streamlined this down to the 10 key reports that you might need on a day-to-day basis. And if you're working with, Sanjeev and his team, and the administrator needs to fill out your scorecards. Okay, here's the clinic summary report, which gives you almost all the data to fill out that scorecard, to supply to Clinic Accelerator. And I'm happy to say we're constantly working with them to try and tweak this report, make it more efficient, include all the necessary data. And it's constantly getting better. But again, if you're an administrator, especially when they're starting with the clinic, and now you come to reports and you go, okay, this is pretty straightforward. Accounts receivable. I know exactly what that is. It's going to give me exactly what I'm expecting. This is current accounts receivable. If I need, my day end report, that's something administrators use literally daily. They can find it very simply here. If they need more advanced sales information, we've got the comprehensive sales report, sales by date. If you pay your practitioners on commission basis, they likely will need the commissions by practitioner to see that. And then down here, your patients are contacting you at tax time or need a list of all their outstanding or invoices they've received over the last year. Simple. Use the patient summary invoice. It's a very efficient report for your team. And then payments. So the day end will give you your payments from the previous day or whatever day you're running it for. But if they need to see, payments received over a date range, that's the report that you would use. Now I've turned on a couple of the scheduling reports. Again, there's a lot of different scheduling reports in our system. These are just some of the samples that I think are the most relevant or widely used reports. Crystal, maybe, are there any reports here or any reports on the scheduling side that you think would be more relevant or something that I might be missing here?
Not on the scheduling side, but there are a few stat reports that I would have included too for admins, like new patients, um, employee sales statistics, and I actually put the patient insights for a really detailed drop-off report.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so that's a perfect example of where, okay, there's a couple more reports we need to add in here. We can just simply go back into the user type, turn on those reports, and boom, they're suddenly available to this administrator, and they can use those reports. So we'll go back and enable those in a second, and you can see how simple this is. Patient profiles. So as I suggested, so I've adjusted my columns, open the patient profile, and you'll see that it's about half the size of a typical patient profile. I've just hidden all the fields that our clinic doesn't need to utilize for the patient profile. And it just makes it a lot cleaner and easier to use here for your team. Another one that's a big one for me is right here. When I go to a new patient, it's very clean, very simple. I put in the patient's, first name, last name, get their email address, and I'm done. Save. It's going to show me that I've got some other matches here. I'm just going to ignore that for the moment. Save the appointment. And from here, instantly, I can just go send the welcome packet, and I'm done. And we've just really expedited the whole onboarding of a new patient and streamlined that. And so, it's these types of changes that I'm recommending to make this as clean and easy as possible. And actually, now that I'm even looking at this whole appointment menu, again, you can adjust that as well. So I'm just going to log out, log back in as an admin, and here we can come into settings, user types. I've got my front desk admin user type, and it's very, very easy to come in here and statistics. So it was, what was it, Crystal? I think you said new patients.
New patients, employee sales statistics is a really good one as well.
Employee sales statistics. Granted. So the rest of these, I would just simply hide them, and instantly you've updated the profile, and these these administrators can have access to those specific reports. So I'm going to save this, and we'll send out a screenshot of in the recording of what that looks like as well, just to make sure everybody can see it and be able to utilize that. Now, Sanjeev, in your experience, are there other areas that you would suggest or think might be relevant to streamline for administrators and practitioners?
Well, actually, I like the spring cleaning you're doing.
Yeah.
I think like less is definitely more. But usually what I do, Terry, is like empower them, like delegate it to them.
Yes.
Because I'm not in the system every day. So I'll delegate something like this to them and then do like a show and tell meeting. So then they'll sit down with me and they'll show me like what they removed, what they didn't remove, and then I get to ask questions. But I'm really putting the power like in their hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think that's one of the things that I'd like to actually put out to the entire group here of attendees is, you know, once you have the opportunity to sit down and work on the system and make some of these adjustments, please don't hesitate to reach out to our staff. I'm more than happy to jump in, kind of review the changes you've made and make suggestions, that type of thing as well. Because our goal is obviously, and particularly in these Juvonno campus webinars, is to really try to empower you with as much knowledge and tools to, you know, make sure you're able to use Juvonno as efficiently as possible, but to really enjoy the system as much as possible. The last thing that I was just going to also touch on here is I wanted to mention that same thing goes for the practitioners. So I've got a practitioner profile set up. Obviously, you're going to see that in this practitioner profile, they have even less available. We've tried to clean this up as much as we can. Now, your practitioners obviously can adjust their dashboard themselves. They can adjust some settings in here, but you know, again, just trying to keep it as straightforward and clean as possible so that, you know, it's not confusing. They can come in, they see their schedule, they can start charting or continue charting, and it's the best possible experience we can offer them. So again, user types, turn off everything, you know, and just give them access to the specific features that they need. So I'm trying to keep on time here because I know everybody's very busy this time of year, and I want to be cognizant of not going over. So from here, I just wanted to ask, you know, a couple of things here. First off, are there any questions from our group? I apologize, as I'm going through and demonstrating some of this, I'm not able to look at the chat as much. So are there any questions that I could touch on here or help answer for you? Just throw them in the chat and we can cover those off. It looks like Crystal's already been answering a couple here. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to throw them in there. The other thing I wanted to also put out there is we're going to be sending out a short survey. We just want to make sure that you're actually enjoying these webinars. You're able to utilize the information that we're sharing with you, and see if there's any specific topics or anything that you'd like to touch on in more detail as well. So one of the things that I'd maybe Sanjeev, you could weigh in on, you know, once they actually make these changes and have to explain to their staff, or how should they present this to the staff when all of a sudden you know, an administrator logs in and there's, you know, half as many things that they have accessible to them.
Yeah, I think the couple of things I focus on is like, what's the value to them? So when talking like, hey, this is going to be easier on your eyes, like you'll move faster, you'll find things faster, right? So I'm always trying to position any changes to the value to the person, not necessarily like the company. Okay, what's the value to them? And second is, I found working on systems most of my career, like we get bogged down in like the fringe scenarios. What if this happens? Or like 1% of the time it happens, or 2% of the time. What if this happens? I need this button. So you can't get it 100% exactly where it needs to be. If it's doing like 90% of 95% of their day, then I tend to ignore like the fringe scenarios, and just get them focused on, hey, this view, this shortened view or streamlined view is going to do like 95% of what you need. Like, let's not worry about like the outlier situations. So those are my two kind of, along with like empowering them to make the change and then showing me, and I'm more critiquing, hey, did you think about this? Or did you think about that? That's usually how you get a lot of buy-in on changes like this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If they can start to feel that you know, extra speed and comfort in using the system, I think it's a win-win for everybody for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. I just noticed a couple of these questions, and I just want to touch on, while I've got everybody on this webinar, we do actually have a couple of very exciting new features coming up. Laura, I know you made mention to the intake forms. On the intake side, we actually are in the process of developing a completely new intake system, which we're hoping to have ready by the end of August, September timeframe. And it's not only going to have an easier tool for you to use to build new intake forms, but it's going to do exactly what you're talking about. All the data will be able to flow right into the patient's profile seamlessly. And we can even revisit some of the ones that you have currently to see about adjusting some of the data there too. Another feature, and I'll just mention it very quickly here, is we're also adding in some new AI tools that are really exciting. And that's on the telehealth side. But what it's going to do is, and you can actually use this when you're meeting with a patient, it'll actually do a transcript in real time for you of your appointments with your patients. And from those transcripts, it actually will develop intake chart note and treatment plans in real time for you. So there's some really exciting things coming. Now, I'm not saying that would ever replace what it does for what you're going to be entering, but what we're looking at is it can actually, start out a treatment plan for you with recommendations, and then you just simply, finish it off and complete it. And it's quite exciting because it learns as you utilize the tool. So these are coming out very soon and should even enhance your experience with the Juvonno platform. Crystal, I know you've been adding some notes and answering some of these questions. Are there any other tricks that you recommend in setting up or configuring Juvonno that help the clinics make it as efficient as possible off the top of your head?
Tons, but I don't know if we have time to go over all of them today. But in all honesty, everything that you've highlighted today is exactly it, especially at an administrative level, making sure that the information is easily accessible, that you can input and make the efficiency of your team better. Time, we all need more of it. And by updating your settings, as Terry has outlined, will give a lot of your admin time back, to work on patient management, patient care, building those relationships with your clients, and within the team as well.